Welcome to the Ink and Impact podcast. On today's episode, I'm going to be sharing 5 things that will help you boost your confidence and unleash your productivity as a writer. So, as writers, regardless of how many books we may have already written, we routinely struggle with two different things: confidence and productivity. If we're first starting out as an aspiring author, we doubt our writing ability in general, right? And if we've already written several books, we begin to wonder if we have what it takes to write another book. Do we really want to go through all of that again? Or maybe we feel that we have imposter syndrome. We've written books, but we don't feel like we're an accomplished author. And then if we are writers who have reached bestseller status, then we worry that our next book won't be as widely received. Thus, doubt, questions, and worry often follow us throughout our author journey. Can you relate? If so, this is what you need to focus on first. Manage your mindset, okay? This is critical. If you don't tackle this first, then you'll have a much harder time becoming productive and writing well. As writers, we're excited by the thought of turning our stories, experiences, and ideas into a book. Yet we often feel a bit intimidated as well, struggling with self-doubts and insecurities. But you know what, fellow pen pusher? It's time to flip that script and stand on truth. It's not about you and your abilities. It's about God and His abilities. It's not about what you can do, but what God can do through you. You're abundantly qualified to write your story because you were handpicked by God to tell it. Oswald Chambers, in his book, My Utmost for His Highest, says, quote, "You say, but God can never have called me to this. I'm too unworthy. It can't mean me. It does mean you. And the weaker and feebler you are, the better." End quote. Indeed, the Bible confirms this. God chose Moses, a less than captivating orator, to lead his people. God chose David, a shepherd boy, to rule over his people. God chose Esther, an unknown Jewish girl, to save his people. And God chose Paul, a man who once persecuted God's people, to help build his church. Now, on the flip side, know that while I encourage you to be a confident writer, I don't encourage you to be a prideful writer. Pride is the overinflated belief in your own abilities and what you can achieve on your own. Confidence is resting in God's guidance and the ability of Christ to work through you as you actively pursue your goal. So the second thing that you need to do to gain confidence and become a productive writer is to create boundaries. While the flexibility of the writing life affords is a blessing, it can also be abused if you don't create healthy boundaries. Now, if you're like me, the writing life means writing at home. This leads to family members and friends thinking that because you're home, you're available 24/7 to talk, play, or assist, right? This is particularly true if you have young children or older ones home during summer vacation. So there are some things that you can do to help with this. Develop a writing schedule and post it prominently where the entire family can see it. The fridge is an excellent choice, right? Especially if you have boys. Boys are always in the fridge, so they'll be reminded every time they go there. Tell your family and friends that unless it's an emergency, you're not to be disturbed during those times. And this includes your neighbor who loves to just drop in unexpectedly, and your mother who loves to call at random hours of the day just to talk, right? Let them know ahead of time. And also, creating boundaries involves creating a budget too. So I encourage writers to create a budget and refer to it regularly. There are tons of products and services targeted to writers. and they all have that, FOMO mentality, fear of missing out. If you don't hurry and get it now, you'll lose out forever and you won't be a better writer. So I encourage you to refer to that budget, keep it where you can see it regularly. There's nothing innately wrong with those products or services. They're usually really good things, but they might not be a right for you at that time. And you don't necessarily need them. Yes, they'd be great to have and you might want them, but look at it in the financial sense of, do you need it? Always take into consideration the expenses you have to cover down the road, such as editing, design, and printing if you're self-publishing, as well as marketing expenses. That's website creation and maintenance, your email hosting, any ads that you may purchase for your books, and also miscellaneous business-related expenses, including income taxes, right? You don't want to not pay your taxes. That's not something fun. It's not something we like to think about, but it's something that you're going to have to pay at some point down the road in the future. So you want to make sure you have those funds available. So while kingdom work is always worth your time and financial investment, it should never come at the expense of your family relationships or cause you to go into debt to fund your book project. The third way to become a more confident and productive writer is to establish systems. What do I mean by that? This may sound more like a suggestion for IT personnel than writers, but systems are equally important to writers. Systems are simply the processes you use to accomplish tasks, the step-by-step directions you take to do such things as send out your weekly or monthly newsletter, distribute your opt-in offers, those things such as your free short stories or first chapters. The systems also include when you create new blog posts, what you do when you run an ad, how you work with a designer, the things that they need every time, how you record a reel on Instagram, what you have to do to create a solid book proposal, and the list could go on. Without systems in place, you're constantly having to start from scratch each time you do one of those things. And you'll have to go back and you have to re-research and make new notes. And then it just is a very large time suck, right? And we want to avoid that. We want to make good use of our time. We want to avoid frustration. And we want to keep us on our main purpose, which is writing. So how do you establish systems? Simply take a few moments to document your steps the first time you do something. And then, this is key, store it in a place where you'll remember you put it. Okay. Now, that could be as simple as, jotting the to-do items in a notebook, a special notebook. Say it's a green notebook, and that green notebook is where you store all your systems. Or it could be, you type them up and then you print them out and you store them in a designated folder. Or, you could just store them on your computer. A lot of people also like to use special apps for workflow and productivity. A few of those include Trello, ClickUp, and Asana. And I'll have links to those. I'm not an affiliate for any of those, but I'll have links to those in the show notes if you're interested in learning more about those. A fourth way to become a more confident and productive writer is to set realistic expectations. There are some authors out there who promote writing a complete book in a week or a month. And while it's true that you can do that, and they have proof that they've done it, it doesn't necessarily mean it's realistic and right for you. Everyone writes at different speeds. Everyone comes to their manuscript with different amounts of experience, not only regarding the craft of writing, but also the subject matter. For example, some writers may have firsthand experience that allows them to just immediately dive in and begin writing about a topic, whereas others have to conduct research for weeks and months before they can knowledgeably write about it. And everyone has different home life and career responsibilities. A single person who is a full-time author will have more time to write than a married mom with 3 kids who works a full-time job as a banker. In addition, don't expect that your first book will become a New York Times bestseller, that you'll become a millionaire as an author, or that you can lay around a pool all day while your book sells itself. No. Writing a book takes time and work. Few authors become rich and famous, and selling that book requires you to do the marketing. This is true regardless of whether you're self-publishing or traditionally publishing. So be sure to set realistic expectations and remember why you're writing in the first place, to share that message God has given you, one that will benefit your readers and glorify Him. And the 5th way to become a more confident and productive writer is to try new things. Have your creative juices stopped flowing recently? Is your interest in writing waning? We're creatures of habit, and it's easy for us to get stuck in a rut. That's when the mundane takes over and we begin to just plod along. If left unchecked, we might eventually want to stop altogether. If that describes you right now, I encourage you to switch things up. If you always write at the same table or desk, move to a different room. Tired of writing at home? Pack up your notebook and laptop and go to a coffee shop, a library, or even just go out to your backyard. Are you bored with what you're writing? Put it aside temporarily and write a piece of flash fiction. Create a blog post, write a poem, pen a prayer. Frustrated by your current lack of creativity? Try doing something new. Get moving and try a new experience, whether it's some sort of physical activity or visiting a new place. It will get your neural pathways pumping again and provide more fodder for your writing sessions. So, in summary, to become a more confident and productive writer, it involves managing your mindset, creating boundaries, establishing systems, setting realistic expectations, and trying new things. Remember, when you invite God into every stage of your writing journey, you can't fail. He will help you write it, and He will enable your book to reach the right readers. Now we're on to the industry update. As I've mentioned previously, I created Ink and Impact as a place to encourage, equip, and embolden Christian writers. If there's ever a time that we need to boldly share our message of truth, hope, and light, it's now. Consider these 2 facts I discovered this week. According to a recent Gallup poll, and I'm quoting, a record low 20% of Americans now say the Bible is the literal word of God, end quote. Another statistic they shared was that 49% of Americans consider the Bible to be inspired by God, but not to be taken literally. And then another statistic that I found, this one came from, actually it's not a statistic, it's a fact, came from Rush to Press. And again, links to the Gallup poll and this Rush to Press fact will be shared in the show notes. But Rush to Press recently shared that, quote, in 2022, Amazon removed a Christian publisher's entire Amazon store, Church and Family Life, claiming they, quote, have published books with misleading content that have the potential to mislead or defraud our customers, end quote. And then I'm continuing Rush to Press's words. In part because this and other acts of cancel culture, a new digital platform is about to be released. Cross Current Digital is a Christian, conservative, family-friendly digital platform that will provide consumers with the option to purchase their ebooks, audiobooks, and digital content from a company that shares and protects content with a biblical worldview, end quote. So that's very encouraging for us Christian authors that this new digital platform, Cross Current Digital, is going to be releasing soon. I believe it's going to become available in August at some point. That's the plan. And I'm not quite sure how that will affect indie authors. If they can upload their ebooks there or not, I'm going to be following that, and we'll keep you posted. But it's still encouraging. And I want to just say too that while the formation of this new company is encouraging, it doesn't mean that we authors can rest on our laurels. We need to overcome our fears, complete our books, and market them actively to our audiences. If fewer people are relying on the Bible for truth, then that leads me to believe that more people are turning to other types of books to seek answers to their questions and to escape the pressures of their realities. Our calling as Christian writers is clear. Whether we're writing nonfiction or fiction, we need to share biblical truth that points people to Jesus and back to the Word of God. Are you struggling with fear or imposter syndrome? Are you afraid to tell anyone that you'd like to write a book? Well, you'll want to join me next week if that's the case, because next week's episode will feature an interview with author Laura Thomas, who kept her desire to become an author a secret for 25 years. That's a very long time. So join us as she shares how she overcame her fear and what happened when she released it. Be sure to visit inkandimpact.com to subscribe to be notified when the episode airs and to access all previous episodes of the podcast, including show notes. So now this leads us to the question of the month. What is one thing you wish you had done differently when you wrote and published your first book? Be sure to email me your answer to info@inkandimpact.com. Again, that's info, I-N-F-O, at inkandimpact.com by the end of July, so that you can have your response included in the first episode of August, when I will be sharing those responses. Now it is freebie time. Who doesn't love to receive free gifts? So I have 2 offers for you this week. First, grab my PDF resource, the 10-Step Author Blueprint, and you can get that at inkandimpact.com. And you can sign up to be one of the first people to receive my free World War II era Christian historical fiction short story, Made to Fly, that is going to be available on my website in early August. So simply click the link in the show notes to be added to the notification list. I'm very excited about that. And if you love historical fiction, especially World War II historical fiction, I hope that you'll sign up for that. Finally, if you enjoyed this episode, please tell your writing friends about the Ink and Impact podcast. Your word of mouth recommendations really mean a lot to me. Thank you so much for joining. See you next week.